The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology.
Hey, do you want to know a secret? This is the best tech podcast in the universe. Well, aside from mine, but I might just be a little biased. I'm America's digital goddess, Kim Commando, and wow, look at here. It's a full house on the Secrets of Technology podcast. Look, there's Dom, Father Corey, Joanne, Thomas, Jack, Pat, and Father Andrew. I feel like Snow White here with the 7 dwarfs, or a password that's 8 characters long. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Hello there.
And Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hi, Father Andrew.
Hello, hello.
So, Father Andrew, tell me, who is that we just heard?
You just heard my good friend Kim Commando. For those of you who don't know who she is, she does a national radio show every weekend. It's a 3-hour radio show on everything technology. So she has been doing this for decades. So you can go check out her website. It's komando.com. But I've been friends with her since I was 17, I think. So this was actually something on her national radio show. She was doing a just within the last month, she's brought back this game show called Brand New or Not True.
Uh-huh.
And so she offers a special guest, and she asked me if I would be the first of the special guests to be on her show to do this.
Cool.
And she presented me with 2 products that were fake and 1 tech product that is true. And I had to guess which one was true out of the 3 of those. And if I guessed true, or if I guessed correctly, then she was going to record a cameo for me.
Awesome.
And if I lost, she was going to give me a Kim Commando fanny pack. And thankfully, I won. So awesome. I asked her if she would do a cameo shout out to all of my friends here on the Secrets of Technology podcast. My co-hosts and listeners.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, Kim Commando is one of the best out there at doing, some of what we do. I mean, she's the leader in this field, and she's a syndicated columnist. She's the radio show. She does a video part of that. The video. I mean, it's really awesome. So she's on Bloomberg TV is actually where her video was going up to. Okay, awesome. I mean, I feel like we've now reached at least the edges of the pinnacle of tech journalism. So I never think of myself as a tech journalist, but it kind of makes me feel like I'm rubbing shoulders with the giants, the greats.
And I do have to point this out: Kim Commando and her family, they are Catholic.
Nice.
And so and that comes through in her show. I mean, she'll even reference her faith, and she's just incredibly generous and giving to the people that call in. And
awesome.
She's just a wonderful person. So, and very informative and very funny. And I say that with slight hesitation because she loves her puns.
Oh, so
even in the cameo, she was being punny, which was great because that's exactly her style of humor. So she sprinkles that throughout her whole show. So it's informative and fun to listen to and watch.
Well, Pat, you would agree with me that puns are the highest form of humor, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the criteria for who I dated.
Exactly. Right. Yes. And when you were, checking out sons-in-law, you're making sure that they were okay with the puns. Yeah. So
that's
awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you, Kim Commando, for giving us that shout out. It's such a privilege to have you mention us and to give us the cameo. So thank you so much. And thank you, Father Andrew, for thinking of us and doing that.
Absolutely.
So I do want to start out this episode with some listener feedback. Patron Mike, who's a patron of SQPN at patreon.com/StarQuest, he had a question for us. He says, I'm losing my job after almost 25 years and am considering opening my own consulting business. I recall some indirect banter about best domain registrars, web hosting companies, and email servers last year, but only recall you all were in agreement that one company that sounds a little bit like Stop Mama, GoDaddy, wasn't an ideal place to do this. And so can I ask, what do you use for SQPN and what do we use for ourselves? And so I thought that would be a good way to start this episode, is to kind of talk about those three things. It's really, I mean, if you have a business, you want to be online, have an online presence, you have three considerations. You need to register a domain, you need to host a website, and you need to be able to get email and other online cloud-based apps. So, Father Andrew, do you have a website for yourself or for the church, or?
Yes, and
no need to give it out if it's not in a condition you want to expose to the public. But just
our website. So that's one of the fun things about being a young priest is this is now. I've been at 3 different parishes, but this is now the second parish that I have been involved in a website makeover, if you will.
Yes.
So the first place that I was at, St. Stephen's Indian Mission out on the Indian Reservation in Wyoming, I went through WordPress, and actually, WordPress was the people that hosted the website. I'm pretty sure I had WordPress deal with the domain registration as well, because I think that they were able to handle both of those. And the third one that you mentioned is email, and I actually used G Suites at the time for to create the business email for all of us there. My current parish, we actually we did a whole new website there too. The old website was in desperate need of repair and fix. So we actually went through a company called eCatholic.
Oh yes.
And so they've been really phenomenal to work with. And so they actually, we got them to basically flip the old website to the new one. So they pulled all the information over, and I've been slowly kind of tweaking things as we go, but super user friendly, and it works really well. So we're using eCatholic for hosting. We're actually using GoDaddy for our domain registration. And then our email for our current website is Microsoft 365 Exchange, and we're actually with the diocese is using the same thing, so they can actually manage our email as well. So that's super nice.
That is good.
I can just go to the tech guy at the diocese if there's problems, and he and I are good friends, and actually I don't contact him hardly at all because I can figure out most of this myself.
Right.
So I found that works really well. I don't know the ins and outs of the behind the scenes, but I do experience the fruit of Microsoft 365 Exchange, and I love it because we also have then access to all the Microsoft Office products, Word, Excel. Publisher has been a really nice one because I've been trying to put together in fact, we did when I was at the cathedral, and I want to do this for St. Lawrence as well, is a booklet, worship aid booklet for the Triduum.
Oh, nice.
And this year I didn't quite get to it at St. Lawrence, but something like Publisher is super helpful for that. And being a Mac user, I don't have access to it. So we have Windows laptops that I have been able to pull that up on. So that's my situation in a nutshell.
When I was director of communications for a parish collaborative, I did it in Adobe InDesign because I was based on a Mac. But when I left, I had to shift it to Microsoft Publisher so that the secretary could take over. But we used eCatholic as our websites there, and it was eCatholic is great for parish websites. Go to them, and they're longtime friends of SQPN, and I recommend them heartily.
One of the things that has been super cool that they've done, we haven't implemented it at St. Lawrence, but being involved at the cathedral for so long, they implemented during the pandemic a sort of an embedded live stream option.
Yep.
So I know that like our cathedral has really been able to utilize that, and it's just, plug and play into the website, and it works, and it works well. So yeah, I have only good things to say about eCatholic, and I've really appreciated their web design.
Of course, for Mike's situation where he's doing a business website, that eCatholic isn't ideal. It's not going to work for them because they do business. Parish sites. But so I'll talk a little bit about what I use personally and what SQPN uses because those are slightly different. So for my website that's been online for over 20 years now, so it has about 20 years worth of blog entries on it, is Bluehost, which it does shared hosting. I started as shared hosting and ended up having to move to a virtual dedicated virtual server. Explain that in a second. Just because it's so massive now and it consumes so much resources that it was clogging up the shared server for other customers. But Bluehost shared hosting is about $5.45 a month for what would be good for a business site. You don't want to get the lowest tier for a business site. You want something with a few more bells and whistles. So it's not much, but I'll be honest. I have not been the happiest Bluehost customer. It's a gigantic company, and you're one among many, 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 many people. And it's not the easiest interface to use and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know that I can recommend it for a business at this point. What SQPN uses, because we have very high server needs, because we're serving out all thousands of podcasts a day at gigabytes of data at a time, we needed something stronger. So we have DigitalOcean. It's a combination of two different companies. So DigitalOcean provides the server itself. It's a dedicated virtual server, and their servers can do anything, and they run all kinds of stuff. And some of the technology of it is a little beyond my knowledge, and probably Jack Barazzini and Thomas Ennerho would probably know this stuff a little better than I would. So, if we need to talk about it further, I'll wait till they're on an episode. But suffice to say that you can basically rent virtual servers that are really optimized for high power and delivering stuff. And Server Pilot is software that kind of goes on top of that in that cloud server that runs WordPress and PHP. And WordPress is free software that can run a website. It's the software for the site, and we are a WordPress based site and that sort of thing. So those are more expensive, in the tens of dollars per month, but for a business that might make sense.
So just to kind of make sure that even I'm wrapping my mind around this, and so for the average listener, DigitalOcean is like where all the media files are stored, all the podcasts. And so
actually not.
Okay.
So the podcast files are stored in a podcast hosting service called Libsyn. So, but I don't want to get too much of a field in how podcasting works, but there's a file a file called an RSS file that basically lists all the podcasts. It's a long text file written in something called XML that lists all the podcasts and embeds the links to the files in it, and it with hundreds of episodes, it gets really big, and every single user downloads the entire file every time they hit it. Their podcast software hits it. So that means tens of thousands of people downloading multi-megabyte file several times a day. That's serving a lot of data.
Anybody accessing the podcast, they have to go through the DigitalOcean to
it will
basically get directed to where the podcasts are. Okay.
Yes. At some point, it's pulling that file off of our server at DigitalOcean. Pat, you had something?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I've been involved in two different websites, both for making them for my customers as well as my own. And one of them was Lunar Pages, which has now become Host Papa.
Uh-huh.
And then the other one was HostGator.
Yes, I've heard of that.
And I've been real pleased with both of those. As far as they both had WordPress options and the ability to go in and yourself and back up files and upload files and all that. And then as well as the WordPress type files, I have a son who also does websites. So he did my website, in his own scripting, etc. So at any rate, so I just wanted to point out that that's kind of a medium priced. It's not as low as $5 a month. It's more like $9 or $12 a month, but I've been real happy with them.
That's good. That's good.
I would also throw out, I've heard good things. I can't vouch for them, but I've heard good things about, is it Squarespace and Wix?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
For creating your own little websites. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a little more constraint within that because you're creating a site through the browser on their site. So it's like eCatholic is the same way as you create the site through the browser. As opposed to creating the files, offline and uploading them, that sort of thing. But for many people, you're right. Like a Squarespace or a Wix site would probably, especially for a consulting business, that's probably plenty for you. So yeah, that's
because
a good point.
They give you templates that you can use and then just plug in your own information rather than building the entire thing from scratch. And especially if you don't know HTML, this is a visual. You just plug and play, put your information in, and even drag and drop, move things around, different modules.
Pick your colors, pick your styles, pick your look and feel. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Those are good.
Those are awesome choices. So that's hosting, and so that's where your site lives and operates from. But you need a domain name to point to that. And like you said, Father, you can often go through your web host and service, and they'll register your domain for you. I kind of like to separate them, just because if I want to change web hosts, I don't also have to worry about my domain, getting my domain from them. And I feel like a dedicated domain registrar, it's what they do, and they're invested in doing it well. And I have two that I recommend. One that is the one that we use primarily, both personally for me and for SQPN. It's hover.com. And one of the things I love about Hover is they have made a customer service promise that whenever you call, you will always talk to a person. You won't get voicemail. There's no voice trees. It's right to a person. So they will help you, they go beyond the Call of Duty sometimes to help with basic things. They also have a service where you can pay a little extra and they will just take care of the problem. They'll transfer and move and things and all the configuration for you if you want. It's a little that extra service is a little more expensive, but the domains are reasonable. The regular domains, just registering one is reasonable per month. It varies depending on what your 3-letter top level domain is. The TLD. So .com, .org. You can't get .edu unless you are an educational institution. .net. But there's a whole bunch of others. .biz. There's dozens of them now. But and there's different prices for them. But so Hover, and then the other one I recommend, if you don't go with Hover, is namecheap.com, namecheap.com. I've used them in the past. They're okay. They're fine. I have no problem with them. I just like Hover. One of the things I like about Hover is they don't try to upsell me. They're not trying to sell me hosting and security services and malware protection, all this other stuff that the Stop Mama likes to throw at me when I'm checking out that sort of stuff. So how about you guys? Any particular preferences with domain registration?
I went through the two services that I had and used them. Okay. Although I've had a third one that I went through Google for Google domains, and that was simple, inexpensive, and just really easy. And so that was a good choice on that.
I have a thing where sometimes I'll think of, that would be a cool domain name, and I buy it, and then I don't use it, and I let it go, and that sort of stuff. It's a problem. So don't get started doing that. It's just like you can end up collecting domain names, and it's not necessarily a good thing to collect domain names and waste money on them. So
those are another virtual product, right?
Yes.
In other words, those virtual things like the
NFTs
icon. Yeah.
Someday we'll have
isn't art.
Yes. Yeah. Someday we'll have to explain what those are, but that'll come after I've understood what they are.
Yeah, I'm still confused. I've heard it explained, but
yeah.
I was just going to mention that for my personal website, I have just gone through WordPress, and they manage my domain and my website, and it's just basically a blog site, but I like the look of it, and I haven't changed in years, and I probably don't plan to, so I'm happy with them managing all of it. So, and I haven't had any issues with WordPress.com. So
good. And then the third thing he asked about was email servers. And so, Father, you mentioned one, Microsoft Exchange. You can get Microsoft 365 Exchange online. You can just an individual business. You don't have to set up your own server. You don't have to manage the server. They do all that. That's about $4 per user per month. That's how most of these email services work. If Exchange is important to you, if it's something you've already known or whatever, that would be fine.
For most businesses, I imagine they're probably familiar with the Microsoft products.
Yes,
most are. So that would be very ideal for someone coming from that background.
Yes, especially if you're used to
support. Mm-hmm. From a support perspective, having a server hosted with Microsoft 365 and Exchange, we have a lot of our business customers that do that, and it makes it so much easier rather than having to mess with all that stuff. And having the recovery problems and the syncing problems with it on Exchange, it's just at 365, it makes it so easy to help your client with.
And if you're interested in Microsoft Teams, that's part of this whole system too. So within the business communication and sharing files and working and collaborating and all of that, it's the Microsoft version of Slack, basically. Right. But
yes,
that's also part of the ecosystem of the Microsoft 365, which could be very beneficial for that kind of a business.
Right.
And we have a lot of businesses too that have their own internal, I'm trying to think, intranet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they've got a platform for that, and I can't give you the name at the moment because my mind went blank, but basically that so they could have a facing out to the world internet site, mm-hmm. as well as just their own employees having the place to put documentation, procedures, all these things within their own site, and that's all built in.
Right.
It's really nice. SharePoint, that's it.
Right, SharePoint, yep. And one of the things that's what I was trying to say. One of the things that you don't want to do, you like having your own website, having your own server for hosting your website, that's one thing. You don't want to host your own email server unless you absolutely have to. Configuration and security especially is a nightmare from what I understand. It's a constant battle.
Stability.
Yeah, and stability. You don't want to have to do that. So you do want to outsource that. So there's Exchange. That's not the only option. You could go with something like fastmail.com. I hear a lot of people talk about they want the privacy. They're big on privacy, big on, you control your own information. Fastmail, that's $5 a user per month for a business level account. Or you could do, SQPN does, we use Google Workspace, which used to be G Suites, which used to be Google for domains, and they keep changing the name every other month. But right now it's called Google Workspace. That's $6 per user per month, although SQPN, we get it for free because we're a nonprofit, and that's good. If you're a nonprofit organization, a ministry of some sort, definitely check out the Googles for nonprofits. You want to get in there because it's free, and that's a huge cost savings. But G Suite, one of the things that I recommend highest with Google Workspace is its compatibility with integrated apps. So lots of apps and other stuff works with it, and just seamlessly. So like my calendar apps on my iPhone, and I have Google Meet is what we use for recording the podcast, and that integrates with the calendar and invitations, and it's the Google
ecosystem.
Yeah, the Google ecosystem. I was going to say the Google octopus, which has its tentacles and everything, is a good and a bad thing, and this is the good part of it. So it's a little more expensive. It's $6 a user per month, but
I have some of my clients that their small businesses decided to go with the Google stuff, and they've been very happy with it.
Yeah.
It was a transition, where people were used to using Word and Excel. If they decided to go with the Google Docs and the Google spreadsheets, that was a little bit of a transition.
Right.
But other than that, it's great for sharing and collaboration.
Yeah, we do our show rundowns for this show in Google Docs, and it works pretty well. Mm-hmm. I hope that helps, Mike. You let us know if you have any further questions, or if any listener has any further questions about this topic. Happy to bring it up again, and if I may bring it up again and talk about the dedicated virtual servers and that sort of stuff at DigitalOcean with Jack and Thomas, because they'll help me figure it out. Because I think I need to figure it out too. I should know how that works. So that would be great. Let's move on. First, we want to thank our patrons, because our patrons, like Mike, they make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Trey K, Frank and Angela S, Cheryl J, Whitney C, and Burke I. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And I want to thank all our new patrons who helped us meet our goal of $2,000 in new monthly pledges, which was our matching gift goal over the past few months. You've heard me say it many times. We had a generous matching gift from a donor, and this is going to be big for us. It's going to help us redo our website, which is one of our big projects for this year, and launching a couple new shows as well, which you're going to be very excited to hear about when they come up. All right, let's move on to talk about some headlines. Our first headline is from Motorola. Motorola just my brother and sister, and I think my other brother too, all worked for Motorola at one point back in the 80s when they sold modems. And I remember it was the 9600 baud modem that was like the size of a suitcase that they had. If any of you kids remember modems, anyway. So every time I hear Motorola, that's what I think about. But Motorola is trying to get this idea of the phone that becomes a computer with keyboard and a monitor that it hooks into. They're trying it again. Samsung tried it a few years ago with their DeX phone. Didn't really take off. But Motorola's doing it again with their Edge Plus phone. So with an Android 11 update, it's not running Windows or Mac OS, of course. It's running a version of Android, so almost sort of like a Google Chrome sort of thing. But I think it's got their own apps and stuff. And the Edge Plus is $1,000 phone, and it's going to give you access to all of the apps that are on the phone in a computer-like, desktop-like environment. What do you guys think of this? Is this something that we should keep trying to do? What do you think?
I guess I'm thinking that, again, it's trying to use a tool that's great for one thing and trying to force it into another role. I wouldn't be interested in it.
I guess I'm torn. I mean, we're in just our culture is, and I mean, just in developing new technology, we want to create that Swiss Army knife that'll do it all.
Right.
And the less things that I have to carry around that do more things, that's kind of the ideal. I don't think that we're there yet. I mean, especially there's too much of a difference between what I can do on a desktop and what I can do on a tablet, which it sounds like this is going to be a glorified tablet. If I want a desktop experience, it better be running Mac OS or it better be running Windows 10 or newer. I don't, if I want a large screen iPad, I can get that. I don't think that we're quite there yet. And the other aspect that at least on a personal level, I still like the distinction between my phone and the computer, because I can at least mentally like my office laptop is like where all the office work happens. And if I have that on my phone, although I feel hypocritical here because I have my email coming to my phone and I really should turn that off, because like on days off and stuff, that kind of just takes away from that reprieve. But regardless, I like the separation of, like, if I'm going to go to the office computer, that's where I can do desktop things. Or if I'm on my podcast iMac, that's where I'm doing this kind of work. And the phone has its own little world. Yeah. And I guess I'm at this point still preferring those to be separate.
I like your point about it's sort of a glorified iPad, in the sense of the phones are really powerful computers. In fact, the chip running the iPhone is very similar, although it has many more additions, to the new chip that's in the M1 Max. I mean, this is a desktop class chip. So that's what they're thinking is, and that's what you got in these Android phones too, is these are desktop class chips. So why not do desktop class things with them? But good point. Like, it's a slightly larger screen and a keyboard. Well, that's what I've got on my iPad. If I want to use an iPad, I'll have an iPad. And someone will say, well, yeah, but that's another $1,000. Whereas I've already got a $1,000 phone. A keyboard and a monitor for that is not another $1,000. Okay, I grant that. So for some people that might be worthwhile. But yeah, it's not really a desktop experience. It's a tablet experience. So right. I agree with that.
And there's just so much more that I can do on a desktop.
Yes.
I mean, and that's exactly why we're recording with desktop computers, not, from a tablet or there's just more. There's more that a desktop machine and the apps that are built for desktop PCs and Macs are just
right.
So much more robust.
Right. Even Photoshop for iPad, which really have they even come out with the one that they keep showing us at WWDC every year? Like, they keep showing us this Photoshop that's going to do all the stuff, but I don't even know if it even came out yet. But it's like it sort of does all the stuff. And I see all these people who are always talking about, oh, my iPad is my primary computer, and I edit video on it, and I edit audio, and I tried it, and I'm like, I mean, you could sort of do it, but it's nowhere near as fast.
Is it worth the extra trouble?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, and like you mentioned, Father, like recording audio, you cannot do the things with audio on a phone or an iPad that you could do on the desktop. Now, does that mean that that they could never do it? No. I mean, I bet Apple and Google could put some programmers on the job and they could figure out ways to route audio around like we do. But
if they could get my iPhone to like plug into a port and have like a portion of the memory on the iPhone be a Mac OS desktop operating system,
right,
and pull that up onto a screen and keyboard, I would be willing to give that a go. But
right.
as it is, no.
Or to put it another way, if there's a future OS that when it's just the screen in front of me that is touch operated, but when it's connected to a keyboard and a monitor, it's interface with a mouse or trackpad, and but both can have all the power and ability, I'm all for it. But that's I think that's a future thing. So I agree. I think it's yet another too early for this. It's not quite. So let's move on to our next headline. This was a little bit of a scary one. So Ubiquiti is one of these vendors of cloud-based mesh networks, Wi-Fi. They also do other things. They do network video recorders, security cameras, that sort of thing. But a whole bunch of Internet of Things stuff. And it's all cloud-based, which means you manage it usually through a browser or an app that's hosted on their servers. And that's important because they, a few months ago, sent out an email to users, customers, saying, we've had an unauthorized access to one of our servers, and next time you log in, we're going to want you to change your password. You see these all the time, right? We get these all the time from different companies. Well, a whistleblower from inside says, not so fast. They're not telling the whole truth. In fact, they had a complete breach of their cloud system. Like these hackers had access to the keys to the kingdom, essentially. They had everything. They had master admin access to all of the single sign-on. Basically, without getting, long story short, they could access any customer's system as the customer, anywhere in the world, any customer. And they have millions of customers. So that is a big deal, especially if they were not being forthright with how bad this was. What do y'all think of this? It's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, especially since, these days so many companies have been caught, and how the emphasis now is on transparency and being upfront, admitting what happened and moving on to remediation. For them to say, oh, one of our cloud-based servers got breached. Oh, no, it wasn't just an Amazon server that got breached over there. It was everything.
Right.
And that, I think the dishonesty is bothersome, and the fact that they could get access to, as you say, all the cloud-based users. And I know some of my buddies have Ubiquiti's mesh systems that they do manage remotely, and that they can manage these small companies' systems from remote. And so that all of those would have been accessible.
Right.
That's real scary.
Yeah, and it's hard. Because a lot of these things, I mean, if you're going to live in the tech world, we have to use some of these systems,
right?
And I think as customers, what we want more than anything is the transparency and the honesty, and I mean, so that's why we're all up in arms on Facebook all the time, is because they've shown that they're not transparent about what they're doing, and and so it's sort of we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You can either just kind of pull out of everything and then you're going to be protected, but then you're not able to engage in the technological world in the way that a lot of us want to.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a trade-off there that we kind of have to make, but I think the issue is or part of the issue is going back to this, just the transparency and honesty of these companies is what we want from them.
And and I want to emphasize how bad this breach could have been, which is if a hacker can get into any customer's account, it means that they can get inside your network and sit inside it and suck down all the data crossing the network. And that's your privacy is completely breached. And that's the big thing about this. And the problem is that we all are being kind of moved forward into these new, like, it's not like the old days where you could have a router and the router's hosted a private little web page that did all the configuration locally. And no, we want new features, and these new features come with new requirements that are give us convenience, quote unquote, but also put much more of our trust into the companies to be secure. And that's why we're always harping on security, transparency, privacy. These three things are so important. We need to hold these companies accountable. We'll keep looking at that and see what happens with that story. But meanwhile, let's move on to talk about this other story. This is interesting. So one of the things that we have to, for keeping ourselves safe, is we have to avoid getting malware on our systems and doing things that make us vulnerable. And so one of the security researchers have found that gaming tools are being used to inject malware into people's systems, primarily gaming mods and cheat engines. And so what are mods and engines? So a mod, Father, you can help me out this with maybe. A mod is where a user created modification to a game, where maybe new levels or new skins for the characters, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of videos where, I mean, I've seen like Thomas the Tank Engine thrown into, like The Legend of Zelda,
right.
So like, yeah, mod would be a modification. So they've done something to change the original game to, either change how it looks, or you can kind of break the code, if you will, and get to maybe spaces in the world that you couldn't normally get to. And I mean, so they're ways of tweaking the game that's not how it was intended to be done. And
sometimes the developers of the games are okay with it. Sometimes they encourage it. Some of the mods are not encouraged, that sort of thing, but there's a variety of them. And then a cheat engine is basically what you think it is. It helps the gamer cheat. And when you say cheat, like I've used walkthroughs when I've played a game that I just couldn't figure out the stupid puzzle and couldn't get on to using the rest of this game I paid $50 for, or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Riven, I'm looking at you. But sometimes the cheat engines they're just ways of, I make my character invincible so I can beat all my friends all the time.
Well, and there are some games for which if there's this cheat factor, it could be real shall we say, real value that they're getting out of these things.
Right.
Poker, gaming, those types of things,
right.
Where if you get something that lets you get better hands in your poker thing, then there's some dollar value that's lost there.
Right. So some of that stuff is found in areas of the internet that are less reputable, shall we say?
Yeah, and I think that's key. So most of them, if you have online play, they will ban cheaters who use this kind of software. I mean, so it's the cheaters are taken very seriously by the online game hosters and the community.
Right. And that's one of the things that makes people using these tools vulnerable, is because they're trying to avoid being noticed, and so they're less likely to speak up if they get hacked. And that lets the hacking tools, these they call them rats, remote access Trojans, and other kinds of malware, spread easier, because the people who are infected are less likely to look for help in clearing it because they've been doing something nefarious. So the lesson seems to be, don't do bad things. That leads to more bad things. There's a moral and ethical thing here.
This has been around a long time, where people would try to download pirated copies of Adobe Illustrator or something like that. And that's where the malware typically comes in, is that's injected into those, shall we say, less than favorably acquired products.
Right.
It seems
and so there's a part of me that says, well, they got what they were going for. They deserved it. But on the other hand, that's not fair either.
Right.
I mean, there's still the bad guys are doing bad stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you never want to walk down the dark alley to make that shady exchange, whether in the real world or in the virtual world. There's just more risk there of just bad things.
Right.
And so some of the mods are fine, and they're but I think that the key there is if you're doing something legitimate, first of all, be careful. Don't click on the random ads that pop up if you are searching for these kind of things, and make sure that your antivirus and all your software updates are up to date, and if you're ever just unsure, don't click.
Yes.
Just say no.
Yeah, just always, if you're getting legitimate mods and other stuff like that, get them from reputable sites. There are reputable sites where people congregate to share mods and that sort of stuff. Go to those places. It doesn't mean you're 100%. There have been plenty of examples of companies whose own, like a company who've created their software and somehow the software they were hosting on their site got infected with a virus like Tomato Torrent. But that was one example that comes to mind. But in general, you're safer if you stick with known reputable sites. And what do people recommend? Don't download from random places. Don't download through social media ads, that sort of stuff. Just don't do that.
Or just Google search,
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Don't do that.
You're going to get all sorts of,
or
things.
weird torrent sites and that sort of stuff. That's bad.
LimeWire.
Yes.
There's a blast from the past.
Yes. And
oh gosh, yeah, I'd forgotten that.
what was the infamous one?
Napster?
Napster. Yes, Napster. So
back in the MySpace days.
Yes. So we have to have we're now going to start having we're going to have a wake here. We're going to gather now for a wake at the funeral home for the voice assistant Cortana. Yes, Cortana, not for Microsoft stuff, but Cortana's app for iOS and Android is shutting down. What? You didn't know there was a Cortana app for iOS and Android? Where have you been?
Oh, I did.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. There was. So Cortana was Microsoft's voice assistant, like the S lady and the A lady from Amazon. And I get the things all around me in there. I don't want. It's like having babies asleep near you. You don't want to say their name and wake them up. That's what it is. And I've never was quite sure why I would want to install Cortana on my iPhone because like if I ask it something, it's going to go. It's going to do what I could do with the S lady.
It's going to be a Bing search.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And Bing is never the best search engine anyway.
Right. But either of you ever tried it?
Of course I did.
Not on the. Well, I didn't try it on the iOS devices because I have enough Windows devices that it's already on there, and so it's like, no, thank you. I usually disable it, turn it off.
And I am being facetious. I am a big Halo and Xbox fan, so the reason I downloaded Cortana is because it was Cortana.
Right. You should explain why that has to do with Halo and Xbox.
So Cortana is the in-game character AI who is basically, dare I say this, the sidekick of you as the main character, the Master Chief.
Yeah.
So you as the Master Chief, and Cortana is the AI that is trying to help you take down the enemy Covenant. Essentially, there's a heck of a lot more that goes into it, but.
And this was on the Xbox?
This is on the Xbox, yep. And so
that's why Microsoft could use it.
Yep. And in fact, I mean, Jen Taylor does the voice for Cortana in the game, and she did the voice for Cortana, the app, the digital assistant. And so part of the fun of downloading Cortana onto my iPhone was that I could hear Jen Taylor's voice tell me what the weather is rather than the S lady.
Right.
So I never really used her in the way that I could use the S lady because I'm not in the Microsoft ecosystem in the same way that I am in the Apple ecosystem. I will say too that I did get the Harman Invoke speaker, which is the only actual physical speaker that Cortana was built into.
Okay.
So,
nice.
And again, I got it for the same reason that it's kind of fun to say,
like the voice.
"Hey Cortana, and what's the weather?" And she'll tell me. So, to be blunt, I haven't opened the app on my phone in probably years at this point now.
Right.
So I'm not losing anything, and she's not gone. She's just gone from
those
iOS
apps.
and Android.
Right.
Yeah, she'll still be. I think it said that she's still very integrated into the Microsoft Office kind of world.
Yes. Yeah,
So.
you'll be able to use it on your phone till July. Yeah. I kind of wish that I could get Durandal, which is the Bungie who makes Halo and created Cortana. That was the half mad AI in their Marathon game. That's the precursor to Halo.
There's just something fun about those kind of voices.
Yeah.
Like interacting with me personally, not just the character in game.
In the game,
right?
Yeah.
You know, the Apple S lady and the Amazon lady, they're sort of generic voices, but Jen Taylor as Cortana, or the one that you had just mentioned, those ones, there's more of an emotional connection,
right?
Which I think at one point you could have, I think TomTom had a GPS that you could download Darth Vader as the voice that you could have directing you with your GPS.
It was awesome.
Waze has some voices that you can download, and they change those out occasionally. But
there was,
you know, if I could get Patrick Stewart to talk to me, I'd be in heaven.
Engage. Yes. Well, they had R2D2 and C-3PO on Waze once, which was awesome. And then you can actually get Samuel L. Jackson on the Echo, which, let me tell you, is a trip. It's awesome. I want Morgan Freeman. That's what I want. So someone make it happen. All right, our last headline. This is kind of a funny headline. I can sympathize with this one because I've sort of been here. Not exactly, but I can understand this guy, what this guy's shoes are like. The U.S. Strategic Command is the keeper of all of the United States nuclear armaments. They are in charge of, keeping them ready to go to war at any point. So it's a very serious organization, as part of the Department of Defense. But like all people nowadays, all organizations nowadays, they have Twitter accounts. And so there's a official Twitter account, and the Twitter account posted recently a nonsensical string of letters and punctuation, semicolons mostly, at random, and then it was deleted just a few minutes later, and people freaked out. What's going on? And then it turns out that the social media manager is working from home like everyone, and he'd left his computer unattended for a few minutes, and his very young child banged on the keyboard and sent a tweet. And it happens. It's not a big deal. I used to be in charge of the social media accounts for the Archdiocese of Boston. I once tweeted from Cardinal Sean's account in the middle of the 2013, was it 13 or 11? 13 conclave, when he's supposed to be incommunicado in the conclave. And then I had to send a tweet immediately afterwards saying, that was not Cardinal Sean. That was an accident. So we apologize. I don't want to make the worst thing you can do is make an international news about that. But I have to say about this one, people kind of freaked out. Like, how could the Strategic Command leave their computers insecure to be touched by a kid? And I'm thinking, this isn't the guy with the launch codes. It's not the general. It's like some flunky who's in charge of the social media account. It's not a big deal. I don't know. What do you guys think? I thought it was kind of funny.
I didn't look at the actual Twitter account, but maybe you did, Dom. What would they tweet in general? I mean, they're not going to be tweeting like, upcoming, tests or missile launches. I mean,
yeah. Oh, it's US _Stratcom. Let me see if I can pull it up without.
I'm curious what they're tweeting in or why they need a Twitter account, or if they're just because everybody needs a Twitter account.
Well, it's a lot of that. It's whatever PR. Like every organization has a PR person. So what do they tweet? They tweet stuff like the official Twitter account of U.S. Strategic Command, and it says just like here's one from today. NATO turned 72 last year. We're proud to serve alongside our allies and partners, ready to take on the challenges of the 21st century. It's that sort of PR stuff.
PR.
Yeah.
Okay.
In case you
goodwill.
3 of our B-2 Spirits, along with more than 100 airmen, deployed to Portugal last month. Yay! That sort of stuff. So it's
okay.
Rah stuff.
It's not state secrets.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of silly that people kind of got like, oh no, that the Twitter account is breached.
Well, or thinking it had been hacked, as opposed to just an accidental thing.
Yeah,
or I was thinking people could have looked at it as like the wake words for the Winter Soldier. Like,
yes.
What is this phrase of characters, and what did it launch?
Yeah, and suddenly the guys in the missile launch officers in the bunkers like become robotic. I must launch missiles. Yes, no, it was nothing like that. No. All right, that's enough of that silliness. Let's move on to our more silliness of the picks of the week. Now, these are actually some good picks this week, and Father, I'm going to let you go first with your pick.
Okay, so my pick this week kind of stems from the last time I was on the Secrets of Tech when we were talking about emulators and ROMs and stuff. My pick is a program called Parallels Desktop. This is for Mac, but it allows you to run a Windows 10 machine virtually on your Mac. So the idea would be is if you're transitioning from a Mac to a Windows, this could help you. You can run it within the Mac. You don't have to reboot your computer into Boot Camp or anything. It runs as a standalone app. You can share files between the Mac and the Windows. I'm less interested in that. I was more interested in I'm trying to get Need for Speed Carbon, which is it was released on PC in 2006. I'm trying to get that to run so I can play some old games on it again. But you can use it for anything, or I could, if I wanted to, I could install the Microsoft Office and Publisher on that, and then use that within my Mac computer. So it's a really powerful virtual machine emulator that would run Windows. And unfortunately, it's not cheap. It's $80 for kind of your standard. You pay once and you have the software. You can also pay a little bit more, and I think you can get a subscription based where you can get continual updates. But that's a subscription. But if you want just a one-time purchase, it's $80. And then you have to purchase the Windows license key on top of that. So that's a separate purchase as well. But there's I think a 15-day trial with that, and Windows, you can try it too before you're forced to buy the license key, and you can, and it runs really well. I booted it up this morning and was kind of playing around with it. And so if you're interested in kind of, but this is for Mac users.
Right.
Who want to run Windows. It doesn't work the other way around.
Now, I know that they were not yet ready to have this for the new M1 Macs, the new Apple Silicon Macs. I don't know if they've updated for that yet. It's a whole set of technical problems in order to do that, because they no longer run Intel. It's not an Intel chip inside an M1 Mac, so they have to do some new things to get it going. So I'm not sure that it runs yet on M1 Macs, the brand new stuff. But for the vast majority of Macs that are out there, they're still Intel Macs, and so that would be a good choice for that. Excellent. Pat, what's your pick this week?
Well, independently, I had purchased a program called Crossover, which runs on a Mac and lets you run games or other programs. And it's more tailored for, did this thing get converted so it can run under the CodeWeaver's product. And specifically, I have a daughter who wanted to play certain games that her PC friends could play, and she could not. So she is now running Witcher 1, Witcher 2, and Witcher 3 will run under Crossover on a Mac. So it's one of these things that was, again, I could also put Quicken in there. I could put things, but it's not everything. It's like they have some scripts that let you say, okay, what things do we have available that will run under this Crossover? And so not everything out there is, but you could tailor your scripts and put some DOS games or things like that over there as well.
So I wanted to be clear. So it's a software you run on your Mac that lets you run certain Windows software on the Mac.
Right.
And it doesn't require the Windows operating system, correct?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. But only certain Windows apps will run on the Mac operating system that are already compatible with Crossover. So they have to be compatible with Crossover, and
or somebody has to come up with the scripting to do it, and then they can make it available to other people.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Good. Interesting. And is it that I'm sure that costs something, but
let's see. They've got the single user version, which I got, was $40.
Okay, not bad.
And then they've got a pro version that's $60 that gives you 12 months of support and upgrades, and then they've got a lifetime of $500.
Okay, well,
which I don't think I'm going to do. My lifetime is not that long.
Well, I feel like I should do an emulator of some sort or something that lets me play Windows games, but because there are some Windows games I'd like to play. But instead, I'm going to do something that's going to take me into the great outdoors. some technology for getting outside. This is an app called All Trails. It's a web service with apps, alltrails.com. And what it does is it connects you with the outdoors, places to go outdoors. It's almost like a Yelp for the outdoors, in the sense that there's all these places, all these trails, and everywhere you live, even in the most urban settings, there are trails. There's outdoors places. There's nature around you. I mean, just looking at All Trails, if you go there and you let it, look at your location, it'll say, like, for me, there's like this pond and this town forest and this loop trail and this other loop trail and on. And it gives categories like hiking, running, wheelchair friendly, family friendly, mountain biking, friendly for dogs, road biking. And so when you go to one of the links, and it'll tell you whether it's easy, whether it's moderate, whether it's hard, how long it is, how much time they expect that an average person would take to do it. And if you sign up with an account, you can do things like create lists. And if you buy a subscription, like an annual subscription, like I did, you can create maps and print out maps, and you can have it on your app on your phone, and you can access the map on your phone, and you can even record your hike using the app on the phone. So it'll keep track of where you are and where you go on the hike, so that you can, upload it or save it for later in case you want to keep track of where you went. So I'm a den leader, a Cub Scout den leader for my son's den. And I also am involved in my daughter's scout troop. And so there's lots of outdoor stuff we need to do. I'm constantly having to try to find places to take them outdoors and go different places and look at trees and animals and all that sort of stuff that scouts do. And this is excellent for that. This is a great resource. And then one of the things you can do is, like I said, it was like Yelp for the outdoors, is you can read other people's reviews of a place and the things that they've said about it. And you can write a review of the place, and you can find some hidden gems. Like, just even my family, we go out a lot of hikes around. We like to get out and about and do stuff. And there's lots of places that I never even knew were there that I've found on this site. So it's really a really great service, alltrails.com, and it really integrates well with iOS and with Android, and the apps are really good. So I would check that out. I forget how much it was, but I want to say it was like a couple bucks a month. So about 30, I think it was like $30 for the year. There's several different levels, but your basic plan was, like, I think, $30 for the year. And if you go outdoors very much at all, that's well worth it, I think. To help you plan the outdoors, especially if you've got kids that are cooped up indoors for the past year and they need to get out. This is great. And if you're a scout leader, this is great. So I want to recommend it. All right, I think that should do it for us. I want to ask the listeners if you have anything you want to tell us, any feedback you want to give us, any questions that you have for us, like Mike did at the top of the show. You can go to sqpn.com/technology, or the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com and ask away, comment for us, give us some feedback. You can find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes on sqpn.com. Follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, everywhere podcasts are found, or on YouTube, where you should also hit the bell to get notifications of new episodes. Until next time, Father Andrew Kinstetter, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Pat Scott, thank you as well.
Adios.
And once again, I'm Don Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.